Alright, you're good now.
Alright. So, we said Alice in Wonderland is another example of a hero sort of blundering into their adventure. I put in Luke Skywalker blundering onto the wrong person's droids, which sort of started off his whole journey.
Yeah, that was an accident.
That was an accident.
I'd agree with that one. Yeah, certainly.
And this was the point. What else?
Well, I had something. Would technically, I know I'm kind of going in a strange direction. Would technically be Harry Potter be something that he kind of blundered into a little bit?
Definitely something he wasn't expecting. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that would be in the same realm. Or not.
No, the adventure called him.
The adventure called him. Yeah, he got the letter. That's
okay. But you have to, in some way, accidentally call the adventure for that.
He didn't do anything to accidentally call a letter to them. He turned 13.
Yeah.
Right. No, but I'm asking if the criteria for this type of thing, you'd have to accidentally call the adventure to you.
Yeah, we're talking about the blunder, yes.
Yes. So it has to be your fault as opposed to a random happening.
Harry Potter comes in later, though, when I start to talk about the herald. In many ways, Hagrid and the letter become the herald to the adventure.
Okay.
Yes, which is another, which comes on later in the chapter. Yeah, usually...
Oh, Neverending Story is probably a blunder.
Neverending Story is a bit of a blunder. There's also the sort of common sort of theme of the hero stumbling into another world, especially in the sort of modern stories, or comparatively modern. There is, many of you who grew up in the 90s remember the movie A Kid in King Arthur's Court.
Oh, there you go.
And before that, of course, there was the Mark Twain book, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, where people just somehow suddenly stumbled into another world. And also, of course, the Chronicles of Narnia, where they just sort of stumble through the wardrobe, not really expecting to find that. So basically, in general, most heroes don't go looking for adventure. We have another example. There's the example in the book of the, I believe it was an Apache, it's a Paraho girl, which I believe is an archaic term for Apache. A girl who decides to follow this porcupine because she wants to use the quills to make jewelry. And the porcupine starts climbing up a tree.
Oh, you're talking about the Arapaho?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's its own separate tribe.
It is our own separate tribe. Okay, because I looked it up, the book, and it was quoted in Apache books, but I guess I was wrong. It is a separate tribe. All right.
Actually, those two tend to share a lot of their own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's probably why it was overlapped. But she begins to chase this porcupine up a tree, and she just thinks she's in it for some nice quills. But it turns out to be an enchanted tree, much like Jack's beanstalk, that goes all the way up to clouds. And she gets to the top, and she's not expecting this at all, and it turns out that there's a whole civilization of people living up there, and the porcupine is actually a shape-shifting prince.
Oh, wow.
Who then woos her. So that's another example of the sort of universal theme of the hero just kind of stumbling into things. But in all of these cases, the random stumbling represents an awakening of the self. As Campbell writes, it's page 42 in my book if you're following along. And this awakening of the self often comes with a little extra, knowledge in addition to the blunder. For the girl in the Frog Prince story, it's the knowledge that she'll someday have to marry. For the, in Star Wars, of course, Luke gets, after finding the droids, the knowledge of who his father really was, or part of who his father really was.
A little Freudian right there. Because it sounds like they're going on... Oh, you would call those preconceived notions, right?
Yeah.
Of what they have, but they really don't necessarily want to face?
Yes, that's what these are.
That's highly Freudian.
We're going to get in a minute to the Freudian. Usually Campbell, you haven't been reading, Campbell pairs the myths with a Freudian or a dream interpretation by Freud, Jung, one of their patients, or another psychoanalyst.
Okay.
So I believe I've got one of those coming in a minute. Looking at my notes. Basically what Campbell writes is that this sort of call to action always comes with a sort of separation, and that separation is symbolic of a person's separation from their parents.
Oh, okay.
Let me see.
All right.
Yes, conversely, all manner of separation and new birth reduces anxiety. Whether it be the king's child about to be taken from the felicity of her established dual unity with King Daddy, or God's daughter Eve, now ripe to depart from the idol of the garden, or, again, the supremely concentrated future Buddha, breaking past the last horizons of the created world, the same archetypical image as the activated symbolizing danger, reassurance, trial, passage, and the strange holiness of the mysteries of birth.
So that ties in. I don't know. I know they said birth anxiety.
Yeah, there's a bit above that. I'm trying to find it. Freud has suggested that all moments of anxiety reproduce the painful feeling of the first separation from the mother.
And what they're trying to do then, all the people that you mentioned, they're the royal child trying to come out. Like, are they fighting against what they're supposed to be?
Yeah.
Are they? So in other words,
That's the refusal of the call.
Yes, that's what the refusal of the call is essentially. Is refusing, he goes into the
So,
story.
okay, in other words, the birth anxiety comes upon what they're born into, i.e. royalty. And they go, oh, I don't want that responsibility, so therefore they're refusing.
Not all of the other. I wouldn't say that for example,
I would put as for example, royalty.
Yes,
Yeah.
But in her case, it's not birth anxiety, it's coming into womanhood anxiety.
Yes.
Coming into womanhood.
Most of these female stories that you mentioned, such as Alice in Wonderland,
Yeah.
those are all coming of age for women.
Okay.
And
which involves the feminine cycles,
yes,
as well as marriage.
We've talked about worse things.
So there's actually a very detailed version in the part about the refusal of the call, which is the story of Daphne and Apollo, where, of course, Apollo is chasing Daphne, trying to woo her, and instead of accepting his advances, Daphne clings to her father, basically asking him to transform her into a tree. And that is, let me find a bit about that, because that's in the next chapter. But I said these two chapters I really think go together, so we'll probably be jumping back and forth between them.
He's stumbling into it, and then therefore the refusal.
Yes. Yes. Let's see.
You said you were going to try and tie that into Lord of the Rings as well.
Yeah, the refusal of the call, well, basically, and the sort of stumbling onto it, I was thinking of Bilbo, who had all of these dwarfs just kind of show up in his house uninvited, expect him to serve him dinner, and then he absolutely had no desire to go on adventure. I believe the quote was, "Adventures are nasty things that make nasty, inconvenient things that make one late for dinner."
Yes,
exactly.
Late for tea.
Late for tea. Thank you. Were Bilbo's exact words, and he did not want this adventure at all. And they all show up. Gandalf shows up first, and when we start talking about the herald.
And by the way, I invited my posse.
Yeah, basically that's what Gandalf does.
Then, of course, stumbling on the ring, which gives way to the rest of the the cycle.
And the ring becomes, when we start talking about supernatural aid. That'll be in that chapter.
It's more about supernatural hindrance.
Well, not in The Hobbit.
Well, not in The Hobbit, no, but yeah.
Yeah, supernatural aid in Lord of the Rings would be. Let's stick with the chapter.
Yes, please.
We'll get there.
Yes.
I have nothing to talk about next week.
I must attend next week then.
Dr. Young reported a dream that resembled very closely to the image of the myth of Daphne. The dream is the same young man who he talks before about a man who found himself in a field of sheep. Who finds himself in a field of sheep. The land, that is to say, of the unindependence. Meaning, when you think of sheep, it's very much a flock mentality. They're always guided by a shepherd. And if you talk to Phaedra Bonowitz, they're very, very stupid.
Clever and stupid.
Clever and stupid.
Horrible combination.
Yes. But more on that later.
It's Phaedra's birthday present.
Really?
Yeah.
Wish her happy birthday. Yesterday was my birthday, by the way, everybody out in internet. So if you want to send me chocolate and other things like that, it's not too late. So anyways, this dreamer was having a dream about being in a flock of sheep. A voice within him says, I must get away from the father. And then a few minutes later, a snake draws a circle about the dreamer, and he stands like a tree grown fast to the earth. This is an image of the magic circle drawn about the personality by the dragon of the power of the fixating parent.
Interesting. Interesting.
And a lot of stories, actually, the parent figure is trying to protect the child from their fate. For example, Campbell mentions Briar Rose, or Sleeping Beauty, where the parents do everything humanly possible, sending the daughter away to prevent her from facing the fate of pricking her finger on the spindle and falling asleep for, I can't remember the exact number, many years, a very long time. But of course, they fail. The two good parents fail to protect the child, and her fate happens inevitably.
Another kind of bumbling thing.
Yeah. Of course, Briar Rose never expected to even see the spinning wheel. The other example he gives, which is a story that I'm not terribly familiar with, but you might be since you know a little bit more about Norse mythology, is the story of, is that Brynhild?
Brynhild or Brunhild.
Brunhild, who is put to sleep by Woden until Siegfried can wake her up.
Yeah, that's actually in a Wagner opera.
Oh, okay.
It's from the cycle of Des Ringen des Nibelungen, the Rings of the Nibelungen, which are little people. And Siegfried is the primary hero, and yes, Woden or Odin comes down, and for Brunhild, in order to save her from various horrible creatures and other people, other malicious things, he says, Brunhild, I'm going to put you to sleep and keep you in this area until Siegfried can come and save you. So it's very similar to that of the Sleeping Beauty, Briar Rose story. That's just the Norse interpretation.
Yeah.
So
there's a French fairy tale I wrote. I mean, read. I'd love it if I could write. Apparently I went back in time and wrote French fairy tales. French fairy tale that I read about this princess who enters into a forbidden forest against her father's wishes, where she comes upon an enchanted castle. And living in this castle are a cat, who isn't quite a talking cat, but is a very intelligent cat, and a female deer, a doe, who can speak to her. And the two of them put her to sleep for until she comes of age. And in that time while she was asleep, they teach her everything she needs to know, they educate her and make her an accomplished lady, and basically tell her, we did that so you'd be scared of boredom. And
also to my knowledge, just kind of randomly, is that I believe the Norse was one of the earliest versions of this particular tale. I actually was not aware of the French one.
This is in a book that I randomly got off of I just download random fairy tale books off of Project Gutenberg. It's a fun thing to do. I recommend it to anybody out there.
Project Gutenberg is a great share site that, it's all technically public domain.
Yeah, it's basically, for those of you who don't know, Project Gutenberg is a website of books that are in the public domain. Their copyright has expired, and they have...
It's not been renewed.
And they have absolutely everything, as long as it was published before 1937, they're almost guaranteed to have it. So if you're interested...
Lots and lots of old fairy tales.
Lots and lots of books of fairy tales.
Grimm was what? Late 1700s?
Yeah, Grimm's definitely on there.
Yeah.
But anyways, the other thing they were trying to spare the girl from in this story was the process of breaking the curse. It was this girl who had the power to break the curse that was on the deer and the cat and restore them to their original form of this queen and her prince. They were fairies who were under this curse.
Interesting.
But they did not want her to go through the hardships that were required to break the curse. They were too protective of her.
So she kind of failed in doing stuff.
No, actually she did sort of blunder through, and as we said, it's inevitable for the hero to end up on this journey, whether they resist or not, or whether people try to protect them from it.
And to kind of bring it towards what a lot of the people know about, like Sleeping Beauty being the most common. Sleeping Beauty, I believe, is German, correct? Or English?
It's the Grimm one.
Oh, so it's German.
Yeah.
And so like the doe and the cat
Mm-hmm.
would be equated to the three fairies.
The three fairies
Yeah.
and all, three
Yeah.
fairies who tried to protect, if we're going with the Disney version, I don't even know if the three fairies are in the Grimm one.
Well, for instance, just for
The Disney version, we're
Yeah.
going to go with the Disney version because that's what we all know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the doe and the cat would be the fairies who tried to protect Princess Aurora from doing her hero's journey.
Which is kind of interesting how you see how that originally or very early speaking was that it was Odin, this
Mhm.
sorcerer instead of three fairies.
Male father archetype!
Yeah.
The idea which Campbell talks about is that the parents are the too good mother and too good father, who sort of impede the characters' progress.
Yes, there you
yes,
go.
they
Yeah.
are mother and father archetypes.
Mhm.
So, when we talk about the hero's journey, we also end up talking about the call to action and the different signs that will appear to the hero. The herald.
Okay.
The frog is a herald who came and sort of showed the princess this new world and heralded her coming of age.
Mhm.
If you want to go back to Star Wars, you could say Obi-Wan Kenobi is the herald, or I like to think of R2-D2 as the herald.
Oh yeah.
Because he comes with a little "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, your only hope" method
Kind of a two-part herald.
message. Yeah,
Two-part herald.
he's the herald, and
The herald to the herald.
yes.
Well, I don't know that I would count R2-D2 as the herald and then Obi-Wan as the sage.
Yes, he's sort of the sage and the mentor and the
okay.
magical help.
Mentor.
Yeah.
Yes, the mentor. That's another chapter.
No.
I really hope all of you have watched Star Wars,
So
because
much.
it's not going away.
Not do that.
No.
Very rude.
Anyway.
What?
He had my phone.
Oh.
Yeah, this is bad for the binding. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go to another example of the role of the herald, and this is a story of the Buddha. Campbell was also, in addition to Western fairy tales and stories, he was also a very big scholar of Eastern ones. And you're going to see a lot
That's
of
more philosophy based, right?
the Buddha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more. That's more. There is sort of a mythology and a canon of stories of the Buddha in his various incarnations.
Okay.
And we're going to see a lot of them. And this is one. Now, on a certain day, the future Buddha wished to go to the park. Oh, I should give you some background before I read this. Basically, when the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, as the story goes, which is the Buddha's birth name, was born, a sage came to his father and prophesied that he would either be a great emperor or that he would renounce the world and redeem it through world renunciation. And the father...
Siddhartha was a prince.
Yes, he was a prince. And his father didn't like the second idea, so he wanted to do everything possible to keep his son from seeing the hardships of the world and renouncing it and thinking on spiritual matters. So he kept him in this beautiful pleasure palace.
Away from people.
Away
correct?
from, well, not away from people. He had a lot of hot women that his father placed with him. Just a whole palace full of beautiful women. He was not allowed to see any elderly people, any sick people. As soon as somebody grew sick or old, they removed him from the palace.
Interesting.
But, as we had said with the too good father trying to protect the hero, it never works.
It over shelters them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you want to read this so you have something to do?
Sure,
All right, read the story.
Right. It's the one that's
It's-
indented, correct?
yes.
Okay. I need to take off my glasses because my eyes are strange. Now on a certain day, the future Buddha wished to go to the park, and told his charioteer to make ready the chariot. Accordingly, the man brought out a sumptuous and elegant chariot, and adorning it richly, he harnessed it to 4 state horses of the Sandava breed, as white as the petals of the white lotus, and announced to the future Buddha that everything was ready. And the future Buddha mounted the chariot, which was like to a palace of the gods, and proceeded toward the park. The time for the enlightenment of the Prince Siddhartha draweth nigh, thought the gods. We must show him a sign. And they changed from their number into a decrepit old man, broken-toothed, grey-haired, crooked and bent of body, leaning on a staff and trembling, and showed him to the future Buddha, but so that only he and the charioteer saw him. Then said the future Buddha to the charioteer, "Friend, pray, who is this man? Even his hair is not like that of the other men." And when he heard the answer, he said, "Shame on birth, since to every one that is born old age must come." And agitated in heart, he thereupon returned and ascended to his palace. "Why has my son returned so quickly?" asked the king. "Sire, he has seen an old man," was the reply, "and because he has seen an old man, he is about to retire from the world." "Do you want to kill me?" Yes. "Do you want to kill me, that you say such things? Quickly, get ready some plays to be performed before my son. If we can but get him to enjoy pleasure, he will cease to think of retiring from the world." Then the king extended the guard to half a league in each direction. Again on a certain day, as the future Buddha was going to the park, he saw a deceased man, whom the gods had fashioned. And having again made inquiry, he returned, agitated in heart, and ascended his palace. And the king made the same inquiry, and gave the same order as before, and again extending the guard, placed them for 3/4 of a league ground. And again on a certain day, as the future Buddha was going to the park, he saw a dead man, who from the gods had fashioned, and having again made inquiry, he returned agitated in heart and ascended his palace. And the king made the same inquiry and gave the same orders as before, and again extended the guard, placed them for a league around. And again on a certain day, as the future Buddha was going to the park, he saw a monk, carefully and decently clad, whom the gods had fashioned. And he asked the charioteer, "Pray, who is this man?" "Sire, this is one who has retired from the world." And the charioteer thereupon proceeded to sound the praises of retirement from the world. The thought of retiring from the world was a pleasing one to the future Buddha.
Now the Buddhist idea, and Hindu idea as well, because at this time basically the Buddha would have started off as Gautama was Hindu before he discovered his philosophy. The idea of retiring from the world was essentially to live an ascetic lifestyle and to focus instead on transcending the world, on achieving enlightenment, and sort of trying to free oneself from the cycles of reincarnation.
So retiring from the world would make you you'd enter kind of a path of clergy, but like being a monk.
Sort of.
Separated.
Yes, you're separated from society. You give up worldly pleasures, and
vows of poverty,
vows of
chastity, vows of
basically. Doing ascetics are generally practice austerity. It's things like fasting, maintaining uncomfortable yoga poses for very long periods of time. There's a very good movie, and please don't cringe when I tell you who's in it, called The Little Buddha, and it's got Keanu Reeves in it. He's alright. He doesn't talk much.
It's not dreadful.
But it's a good movie. Basically, the premise of the movie is that this little American boy is the reincarnation of a Buddhist monk.
Interesting.
And he's being taught the story of the Buddha, which is told in flashbacks. And that's a really good movie to watch if you want to get a feel for the story of the Buddha. That's how I first saw it. So, of this, Campbell says that this is the first stage of the mythological journey, where we have designated the call to adventure. The Buddha's call to adventure was seeing the things that jarred him out of the world that he had been living in.
And they were the steps of 3, correct? First the old, then the diseased, and then the dead man.
Yes.
And then finally the monk.
The monk. It's the four steps, I believe is what it is called. It's written here. I believe it's the four signs.
The 4 signs.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. And basically...
4 is a magical number with signs.
Sometimes. And this is the same sort of force that basically he knew the time. The Buddha was one who didn't refuse the call, although he did tend to get distracted from it by plays and dancing girls at first.
I'm going to make a kind of a stretch of a comparison.
Go ahead.
But
Stretches.
it has to do with the number 4 again, with the signs. So the Buddha being separated, living a different life than most of us.
Yes.
Needed those 4 signs to realize what he needed to be. First the old, then the diseased, then the dead, and then the one that is retired from the world. Ebenezer Scrooge, living a very different life, had 4 ghosts. First the messenger, then past, present, future.
This is a good
And
point.
both of them changed, you see, because you have Scrooge being this old miser, and then finally someone who is cheerful and finally willing to give. Or you have Gautama being this privileged prince, all of a sudden now becoming the enlightened, very simple Buddha. So I mean,
Campbell's whole thing is a massive stretch. He loves linking completely random things. So that's definitely a valid point. Yeah, I hadn't thought of Ebenezer Scrooge.
It's the step of four that the step of four that leads to a change.
Yeah.
That I don't know. Maybe, perhaps.
I do not know what Charles Dickens was reading.
Yeah.
But it might be one of those things that are, as Campbell says, sort of ingrained into consciousness.
That's very Jungian, the collective consciousness type of thing.
He likes Jung will be coming up more and more as we go on. So that's the end of Chapter 1.
Or Chapter 1, Part 1.
Chapter 1, Part 1. Refusal of the call, I think we've probably covered most of that. So next week we're going to pick up with supernatural aid and crossing. We're going to lump. We'll just do supernatural aid next week because we can have a lot to say on that one. Once again, this time you're going to want to brush up on the Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh my.
Watch the movie, save yourself and just watch the movie because you can't read Campbell and Tolkien in 1 week. You could try.
You can read the books or you can watch a 3-hour-long movie. Whatever comes first.
But yeah, we're going to do some supernatural aid. We're going to talk about probably getting a little bit to party dynamics. Probably talk a little bit about Dungeons and Dragons. If we got any gamers in the audience.
Only played that once. Interesting thing.
Yeah, we're gonna get more and more into talk a lot about gamer terms and things like that. So if you've played D&D, you're going to enjoy this. We're also going to talk a bit about supernatural aid. There's some Indian folk tales. Once again, there are supplemental materials on the Witch School and Young Witches discussion groups. If you do not have the book but would like to read some of the stories that we are discussing, they are up there. I'm going to talk a little bit about Arabian Nights, and it should be a lot of fun. So I hope you guys enjoy.